Welcome everybody. So we're going to be getting started shortly. I'm going to put some music on, set a little countdown timer, and we can hang out and chat as we wait for people to arrive. We're going to be getting officially started in 15 minutes. So I'll just get this timer up and we'll start the timer and put on some music. So we can just chat in the little chat on the that side or that side. I'm not sure which is showing. I think it's that way. You can say hello. I would love to know where you are, what your name is, what you do, what's your craft. And there's also a sessions area on the left where you can actually join into a group video call, kind of like a round table, and meet other people here if you like to explore that. Otherwise, just hang out, get cozy, and we'll get started in about 14 minutes now. Sweet, thank you for being here. From Amsterdam. Nice. Hello, Meister Woody from Amsterdam. Carlo from the UK. Virgil from Hawaii. That's where I lived for 8 years up until last year when the volcano erupted. So glad you made it back. Oh, awesome. Yeah, I've been digging some Super Task lately. I've just been really into like nice, chill, down-tempo, kind of like with a nice, bassy, groovy edge to it. This is really hitting the spot for me right now. Webinars tend to be so freaking boring. So I just want to spice it up, add some music, some art. And thank you, Carlo. I'm still kind of getting used to this setup. It's quite a complicated setup. I have like 2 monitors and multiple windows open and all sorts of things wired in that enable me to do it this way. And it's definitely taking my computer to like the edge of its capacity, but we're gonna be just fine. So nice. Yeah, this is pretty much like all I listen to while working. I just like put on down-tempo, kind of like chill hobby, down-tempo-y music and just get lost in my work. Tamara, Dream Factory. Thank you guys. I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. This is the first time I've ever done something like this. Virtual dance party chill session. Glad you guys are enjoying it. Thanks for being here. Tamara, you're in Jamaica? That is amazing. started, everybody. Get out your notebooks. Class is in session.
Flawless design, flawless design, flawless design. Hardest to find, hardest to find, hardest to find. One of a kind, one of a kind.
All right. Let's get this party started. So, just getting used to this whole situation. There's a lot of things I'm tracking and doing here, but I'm having a lot of fun. So, why don't we get this party started? Let's get going. Timer's up. And there we go. So, welcome everybody to the Brand Alchemy Masterclass. I am super duper stoked that you are here. We have a lot to talk about. This is going to be about this presentation will be about 90 minutes, possibly a little bit longer, but is going to be just absolutely packed with knowledge, information, ideas, philosophies. There's no way you're going to be able to capture it all. I would recommend taking notes, write things down. But again, it's not really so much, the goal here isn't to collect a bunch of dots, but to connect some dots. So we're going to be laying out a bunch of dots, we're going to connect them together, and this event is a success for me if you walk away with a new perspective, a new way to look at how you approach branding and marketing and the business side of your craft. So, why are we here? Why are we here? Because, well, I'm here because I'm feeling deeply called to teach this process and to teach this work that I've been creating basically for the last decade now. Now, why are you here? I think that we're all actually here to make better art, to make more, to make a better audience, to make more resonance with our audience, to grow our audience. We're here to learn how to market better, how to make and create better brands, and ultimately how to present our work better. So we're going to learn just some basic philosophies that I've developed and learned and synthesized and borrowed over the last 8 to 10 years that have been guiding my process. And there's 3 specific categories that we're going to be looking particularly at. And these 3 categories are really the backbone and the essence of Brand Alchemy. So that's brand strategy, experience design, and transformation. We're going to dive into each of these and really dissect what exactly they mean shortly. I want to say too, at any point, so I can see my chat this time as I'm presenting. Last time I couldn't see the chat, so I had no idea that my connection dropped when it did. So if my connection drops, please just type in the chat and I'll see it. And also I'm recording this whole thing, so if something happens and we have a total meltdown, at least we'll have the recording at the end. So we're good. So who am I? About me. I've never been able to figure out how to define myself, and that's not what I'm about to attempt to do here. But I do want to share a little bit about my history and kind of where I'm coming from and how I landed in this specific line of work that I'm in. But essentially what I do is I help artists, businesses, and organizations craft transformational brands and experiences. The sort of primary way that I've been doing that over the last 10 years is through doing brand development, brand strategy, web design, marketing, all these things in a sort of client relationship situation where usually I'm working with businesses and whatnot. Unfortunately, as I've been growing this business, going from being a freelancer to now I'm in an agency model, working with other people on these projects and I have a designer that I'm working with, which many of you guys know, Andy Buns. He's a musician that goes by the name Pathway. But anyways, let me refocus here. So essentially, doing client work has been the main thing. And so as I've been developing my own personal arts, which I'll get into in a second, all this time, this has been my sort of like primary means of making money. So like I said, as I've been growing this business and getting bigger client projects, like the one that I'm working on right now, it's a $72,000 brand redesign, basically, which is awesome. But it's a nonprofit. It has a board of directors, and everything's very slow and bureaucratic, just, as big organizations are. And I've been really wanting to figure out how to work with fellow artists more. But it's not really a viable business model to like do design, work for artists, because artists tend to, not be the most cash rich. At least they haven't up to this point. But we're going to change that. But this process, I've figured out a way, instead of doing the work for you, I'm going to pull you into my system that I use to develop $72,000, design projects or branding projects, really, and the thinking that goes into it, and equip you with the tools so that you can do it yourself or with friends. I'll do it with you, but not for you. And that's what this is all about. So I'm just really excited to finally be at the point where I can do that. And I have all the tools and platforms and all the stuff that I need. So here we are. and this is the beginning of something really awesome that I'm really excited about. So this is me and my dog Ella and my wife Mara. We lived in Hawaii for about 8 years, up until 2 years ago when the volcano erupted, which we'll be getting deeper into in just a moment. But the way that we ended up in Hawaii is my journey is that I was born into a family or a situation that I was basically born into the construction business, and that was my job ever since I could start, working. I would work in the summertime doing construction, making money, while I was in school. And when I got out of school, that was what I went into, and I was really equipped to take over the family business essentially, but it just wasn't working for me. It wasn't satisfying to my soul. So I had to leave all that behind, and that was, the start of like, all right, let's try something new, move to Hawaii. And that was right around the time that I began creating events and learning about design, and one thing led to the next, and the rest is history. So the primary thing, as I said, that I've been focused on is design, and this is really design and branding and strategy. And this is what, has allowed me to live the life that I've been able to live and support my arts on the side. And now I'm in a process of kind of merging them all together. A lot of times, my work kind of started out as a designer, and now it's becoming more and more like a strategist, and this is kind of, instead of like working so much in Photoshop, I'm more working on a whiteboard these days. Now I've been a musician since I was like 3 years old. That's been just like a constant sort of pulse throughout my entire existence. That's pretty much the one common thread that has kept me going through life, has been music. And so this is me actually performing on a stage that I created and an event that I hosted in Hawaii. Unfortunately, this venue is actually no longer there. It got burnt down about 2 years ago. But along my way, I've created a lot of really interesting projects. I've done a lot of client projects. I've worked on built a lot of website, created a lot of brands. But 2 brands that I've created in particular, I really, really, I feel like they qualify as art for me, first and foremost. And then, secondly, they were for making money in abundance. So the first one is the Great E-Course Adventure. And this kind of started as a client project that I ended up getting brought in and becoming basically a co-founder of this. So it was a friend of mine that was teaching online course creation, and he had a product called the E-Course Creation Blueprint. And he brought me in to help him kind of revamp the course and relaunch it with a better brand. And I decided to partner with him, and we went to the drawing board, and we were thinking of how do we take like online courses and make it interesting and fun and engaging. And so we created this brand around this theme, or this idea of the explorer, and creating an online course into an exploratory quest. So what we did is, instead of just having like a step-by-step, here's the course, we actually created like a whole map. And in the course, each module of the course, we called them checkpoints. And basically each checkpoint had like a different sort of set, and we filmed the whole thing in green screen. The whole thing had a storyline, and like really played into this story. And our students absolutely loved it. I built the entire platform. So this is like a screenshot of the platform that I built for it, which is basically an online course, an online community. We even had like a digital currency called Bajillion that you can see here. We had badges that you could earn. I mean, it was basically created a whole little universe for online course creation bliss. This is the community campfire where, let's see, when I stopped working on this project I think it was like about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, there was nearly 10,000 posts in the community. So it was a very active community. And actually with this course, we pre-launched it before even building it. We basically just created the the branding and the whole, you know, messaging about it. And we pre-launched it, and we made over $20,000 just in pre-launch sales, and that's what funded actually creating it. And it was a huge adventure just building the thing. But I'm really proud of that work. There's a lot more I could show you with that, but we'll just keep it brief for now. So this leads to the next one, and this is definitely like something a lot of you actually know me through this, and this is something I created with a UK-based music producer named Headflux. So what Audio Alchemy is, you know, it's sort of, this is where the inspiration of Brand Alchemy came from. So with Audio Alchemy, what we set out to do, Steve Headflux and I, was to combine our interest of alchemy and sort of esoteric thought and philosophies, to combine these principles and ideas with music production, because we started noticing all these connections points, and we were seeing that music production was a really perfect modern way to sort of practice this alchemical art, so to speak. And so we actually created an entire system of making music that's based around these ideas. And so and Brand Alchemy is kind of was birthed out of that whole process. So Audio Alchemy actually started as a retreat. And so those of you that are here that know me through Audio Alchemy, we all met each other through a retreat, or perhaps a live workshop. So this is the venue that we had our last retreat. So it started out, it was a 12-day retreat. We're currently taking a break from them. We're actually working on our first Audio Alchemy book, and retreats will be coming soon again, but not in the near future. So at the last retreat that we had 70 people come out, and we took over this entire retreat center. And on day 2 of the 12-day retreat, we were blessed with a volcano eruption. And the volcano opened up in a nearby neighborhood just a few miles away, and basically started seeping through the whole neighborhood. And one thing led to the next, and it ended up taking out like hundreds of homes. And I mean, it was just a huge ordeal that we all went through at this retreat, and it was quite the like initiatory experience. Some of you were there, so please chime in on how that was. So this is actually the night sky next to the retreat center. Pretty crazy, right? And then this is actually not this last retreat. This is a previous retreat where we hiked out to where the lava was erupting, because it was continuously erupting just a small bit in a contained area for years. But and you could hike out and look at it. But this was in 2018. It actually started like coming up out of the ground all over the place. So we all made it through that wild experience. And this is the retreat group, most of them anyways. And that's us at the very end. We survived. It was quite the experience. So all right, so what is Brand Alchemy? So if Audio Alchemy is taking alchemical philosophical ideas and applying it to music, then Brand Alchemy is the same thing, but applied to branding and marketing and business. So there's 3 key things that we're going to look at here: is branding, experience, and transformation. And these three aspects are like the master keys to the whole system. And I'm just going to double check that we're still streaming and everything's still good. All right. We are good. So to continue, let's get going. So there's 3 things that I really want to achieve through this process, through today and through just the entire process that is going to unfold as we move on over the coming months. So ultimately, I want to help all of us discover the master key to our creativity and personal development. To me, it's really about unlocking our true potential. And that's what this is all about. And that's why this is really primarily focused at artists, because, you know, the artists are the ones that recognize that potential within themselves. And there's a sort of deeper yearning or deeper calling to create. And that deeper calling is really the juice and the fuel that we need. So the next thing is, so number 1 is to unlock our true potential. Number 2 is just to understand, like, where do we go? Where are we going, right? Like, what is the direction that we are taking as artists, as creators? And I know for me, myself personally, a lot of times my path has felt like this, exactly like this. I don't know what way to go. There's millions of possibilities. They all look really good. What way do I go? So hopefully by the end of this, you'll have some more clarity as to what direction that you want to go. And the third thing is clarity. Clarity is such an important thing. And when there's clarity, clarity cures confusion, right? So if we can develop, if we develop clarity and we develop vision and live by it, that's another key thing that we're going to be looking at here. So I want to read a quote that a friend of mine, Jose Caballero, introduced me to. So, the last few decades have belonged to a certain kind of person with a certain kind of mind. Computer programmers who could crank code, lawyers who could craft contracts, MBAs who could crunch numbers. But the keys of the kingdom are changing hands. The future belongs to a very different kind of person with a very different kind of mind. Creators and empathizers, pattern recognizers, and meaning makers. These people, the artists, inventors, designers, storytellers, caregivers, consolers, big picture thinkers, will now reap society's richest rewards and share its greatest joys. So that's Daniel Pink from his book, A Whole New Mind. Absolutely brilliant words, and I agree 110%. It is our time to shine. And, you know, that's really my conviction that, like, literally the world is ours, and all we got to do is just do our thing. So how do we do our thing better? It starts with brand strategy. So to understand what brand strategy is, we need to understand what the 2 words brand and strategy mean. So we'll start with brand. And what is a brand, right? It's interesting because brands are everywhere, right? I mean, as you know, we were born into the sort of golden age of marketing and advertising and all these things, and things are really rapidly changing right now. But what is a brand? You know, is it a logo? You know, what exactly is it? And if we look at actually where the word comes from, because I love looking at etymology. The original meaning is not so bright and starry. It's actually comes from cattle farming, which was essentially the first sort of business that there was agricultural, right? And one of the main products you could have, or commodities, was cattle, cows, livestock. So in order to know which livestock was yours, and also, you know, when so what they would do is each farmer would have their own unique brand, which is like a sort of like a what's the word I'm looking for? It would basically be a piece of metal with like their logo in it, for instance, and then they would brand it on the cow using a hot piece of metal. Pretty gnarly, but the idea is that they're making their mark on this product, even though it's a cow, but let's just say it's a product for now. They're making their mark on it so that the world knows who, you know, oh, that's so-and-so's, right? So when you see something out in the world, whether it's a cow or a piece of art, if it's well branded, you're going to know whose it is, right? So that's the idea of branding. Now, there's more modern interpretations of what branding is and how it works. But this quote is a really, really good clue as to what's really going on. A brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. Now, there's a key word here is gut feeling. Because as we're going to see in a moment, the branding really works with the subconscious, okay? And that's that gut feeling, right? So when somebody's gut feeling says, oh, that's what Starbucks is, right? It's like that gut impulse. If that's the subconscious's opinion as to what Starbucks is or whatever brand is that we're talking about. So let's just look at this. Let's just clear our minds for a second, and I'm going to show you an icon, and then just think to yourself, like, or even type in the chat, like, what's the first couple words or feelings or visions that come to mind when you see this icon? What comes to mind? What's your, as I say, gut feeling about this? Here's another one. You feel how all of a sudden, like, your entire mind just shifts into a whole new realm, and you start thinking about athletes and basketball and Michael Jordan and stuff. And, this idea of winning, achievement, right? And the reason that we, even though we're all having our own experience about what these icons mean, even like whatever they mean to you, to some people, they're definitely going to mean, like, yeah, corporate, I'm seeing temptation, no, reliability, approval. These brands have put an immense amount of resources into telling your subconscious, what to think, basically. is really what it comes down to. Here's another one. This one I like. I don't like this one, but it's still, we're all having a similar experience when we think about this. We have different interpretations. Some people like it, some people don't. But, there's something that sort of like is the same, right? A brand, as Quinn says, a brand is also a sword. So by being authentic, you're expressing the sort of truth. You're a unique brand. Yes, that what you're saying is absolutely aligned with what we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes. So here's the key thing. It's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is. So everything that you all said is totally true. That's what those brands are, right? If, Jason says corporate, right? Well, yeah, that is what it is, right? They are corporate. And, if you don't like them, then there's a reason you don't like them, and it has to do with their behavior and something that they've ultimately put out into the world. So it's not what you say it is, it's what they say it is, right? So this is a really key thing to understand, that when it comes to branding, we think that it's about coming out and saying what I am, like putting my sort of flag in the ground saying, I am me and this is what I do. That's not actually what branding is, even though that's a part of it. It's sort of a first step, but really branding is when the rest of my audience, the world, reflects to me and tells me what I think I am, right? That's when I have sort of established the brand, so to speak. So what makes a brand powerful, right? These are like these are the Forbes list of, these are from Forbes list of the 100 most powerful brands. Again, doesn't matter if we like these brands or not, or if we agree with their business practices. The fact of the matter is they are the world's most powerful brands. So what are they doing that makes them so powerful, right? Like what exactly, for instance, what does Apple do that takes it from being just a computer company to something more? to make them, they are one of the most powerful brands. And it doesn't really have, you'd think it has everything to do with the computers, but it doesn't. So it's about the subconscious, right? If we go back to this, a brand is a person's gut feeling about a product, service, or organization. So the subconscious, we need to speak to the subconscious. And in order to do that, we need to understand how the subconscious works, and also understand that our lives are driven by our subconsciouses. So this is a bit of a double-edged sword here, because we're talking about, on one hand, learning to understand how our subconscious works and how to communicate with it, and then also how the subconscious works of our audience and how to communicate with it. Because again, branding is this sort of over time setting impressions, and in a way it's like entrainment, like brain entrainment, right? And through consistency and these impressions and creating resonance with our audience, they develop this image, this subconscious impulse as to what your brand is. And that's when it begins to become very, very, very strong. So we want to speak to the subconscious. And one of the best ways to do that is to use evocative imagery, right? We want to be evocative. We want to, and what does it mean to be evocative, right? Apple is very evocative, just in the way that they are. What does it mean to be evocative? It means to evoke, which is to bring something up, right? So if you were thinking about, like, if you were to evoke a spirit, it would mean that you would be trying to like materialize the spirit out in front of you, in contrast to like invocation, which is trying to make something happen within you. It's inside. The evoke is outside. So powerful brands have mastered the art of creating evocation within the hearts and minds of their audience, right? So there's a lot of ways we can do this using imagery, right? Because the subconscious it does not speak in logic, right? It speaks in emotion and image, and it just takes whatever you give it, and it starts to, it has its way. Another really key attribute or aspect to powerful brands is that they're mythic, right? They sort of play a mythic role within the marketplace in a way. And I mean, if you think about Apple's very mythic. I mean, even their logo is a sort of nod to the Garden of Eden, right? Nike, mythic, right? Nike is the goddess of, I forget if it's the goddess of something that has to do with achievement or being an athlete. So they're playing into this idea, playing into story and myth, and that, that's where we derive our meaning from. Like, we're going to talk about the power of myth here shortly, but myth really it's something that we can chew on. That's why movies work so well, is because it's just driven by myth and story. So the best brands learn how to imbue their whole brand with this sense of myth and story. So there's a way that there's a really easy framework that we can use to create engaging mythic brands, which is called archetypes. And this is actually a system that was created that's based on Carl Jung's archetype framework, and then this was kind of just tweaked and ported over to the branding world. And so the idea is that if you pick an archetype, that archetype comes with it a set of values. It comes with, a sort of philosophy and approach to life. And all of these archetypes resonate with different people. They're all inside of us, but we tend to lean towards one or two or, a couple of them more so. Same principle applies with like astrology, right? So if we look at I love, Apple is a great example. Apple is a creator brand, right? Or it could also be a magician brand. Disney's a magician. Harley Davidson is the outlaw, right? Think about Google as the sage. So, you start to be able to see how these big, powerful brands are kind of, they're embodying these very simple but powerful archetypes that are inherently understandable to us humans because they're inherently humanistic, right? They're basically applying these human qualities to these brands by using archetypal psychology. So more on that later. Purple Cow. So when it comes to a powerful brand, we need to be differentiated. We need to be unique. We need to stand out, right? It's really, I mean, there's never been a better time to be an artist or a creator, because now, everybody's got the whole world in their pocket. But that also means that the entire world is your competition, right? I mean, we're all ultimately working together in this big human game, but let's just think of it as a friendly competition, supportive competition. So the idea being, Seth Godin in his book Purple Cow, he talks about the idea that if you're driving down the highway and you see a cow, you're gonna be like, wow, it's a cow. Maybe you've never seen a cow, so you're gonna stop. You might take a selfie, post it on Facebook. You see a few more cows. The first couple are like kind of interesting, and then after you've seen 10 cows, you've seen them all, and then they just fade into the landscape, and then no longer is it an exciting thing. It's just a part of the landscape. Same thing is true with the vast majority of what's being put out there right now. It's all just sort of mushing and blending together. And only the people that figure out how to differentiate themselves and individualize in a profound way are able to really break through and sort of have their signal rise above all the noise. Because there's never been more signal, but there's never been more noise. So the idea is that when all the cows just sort of blend together, and you're driving down the highway and then you see a purple cow, wow, it's all of a sudden there's that freshness again, and you stop and you take a picture, another selfie, post it on Facebook, it gets shared. And then if there's another purple cow, it might be kind of interesting, but it's the second purple cow. It's not the first purple cow anymore, right? It's like not exciting anymore until there's a green cow or a white, or a white cow. There's already white cows. See what I'm saying? But then once you have the whole rainbow of cows, that's not exciting anymore. We need to go to a whole new animal altogether. And that's just the nature of being remarkable and innovating. Speaking of innovation, what we're finding, what's happening, or there's a trend, is that industries tend to consume previous industries. It's almost like Pac-Man or like the Russian dolls. And it's like the old way of doing things, it doesn't just like change into the new way, but it almost it gets consumed by the new way. Perfect example is like, Blockbuster Video. I mean, back in the 90s, like owning Blockbuster Video, it was like the best thing ever. That was like such a great business because everybody loved movies, and you have to go to this place and rent the movies and blah, blah, blah. And then Netflix came along and they offered this mail order movie thing where you don't need to go to the store anymore. You just get on your computer and then order your movie that sends to you, and then you send it back when you're done. Blockbuster, they didn't get the clue. They resisted change, and resistance is futile. So what ended up happening, as we all know, is that Netflix completely consumed not only Blockbuster, but the entire, home movie industry, right? Just like overnight, gone, out of business, kaput. It's these innovations that, allow you to be that, right? And then, think about Netflix, because it was such an innovation and it was so ahead of its own time. There's no one else can catch up. It's just game over, right? Until something else comes along and renders Netflix obsolete. And that's a whole nother thing in itself. So another thing that's really, really key component to a powerful brand is that they tap into emotion. They realize that, it's not all logic, right? We need to have a balance of left brain, right brain. But like most, we all make most of our decisions not based on logic, even though we tell ourselves that story that, oh yeah, I'm, so logical and rational. But really, like there's nothing really very logical about anything that we do as humans. I think the quicker we can accept that, the better. And, humans are inherently illogical creatures. There's actually a great quote that says, the human mind does not run on logic any more than a horse runs on petrol. And I think that quote might be up here soon. So it's really honoring the emotional side of things, and, not just like focusing on like, what am I saying, or whatever, but like, how am I saying it and what emotions am I drawing out in people or want to draw out? All right. So another key thing about powerful brands is that they tend to pass the grunt test, which is to say that if you go to their website, it's not going to take you but half of a second. Even it should just be instantaneous that you know exactly what it is that they do. There's simplicity and clarity. They're not giving you word salad or a novel to read to figure out what they're doing. And I find that a lot of times we tend to just over-explain things or just don't know how quite to communicate our work, right? We know how to make great work, but when it comes to the communicating part of it and putting it out into the world in a way that is going to want people to engage and share it and whatnot, sometimes we just overcomplicate things. So we just want to make it really easy, make sure that whatever we put out is just simple to digest and understand, passes the grunt test. A monkey or an ape should be able to look at it and figure out what it is that you do. And then the last really key component here for powerful brands is that they embrace and create culture, which is to say that they bring people together, right? They create situations, as Seth Godin says, people like us do things like this. The idea being that, we all strive for a sense of belonging, and the best brands are the ones that make you feel like just by buying their product that you're an insider, you're part of something bigger than yourself. Apple's a great example. And it's that culture. It's not the product, it's the culture that makes people want to go camp outside, with, to get the newest iPhone when they just bought the newest one a year ago. So to recap, primary aspects that all really powerful brands have is that they speak to the subconscious, they evoke imagery, they're evocative, they're mythic, they're archetypal, they're unique, differentiated. There is no other. They're one and only. They're innovative, they're emotional, they're simple and clear, and they're cultural. All right. So that's brand strategy. So really what makes the brand strategy, the strategy aspect, is essentially a approach or game plan to the branding process that is that's set up to create a specific result. That's the strategy, right? It's basically to say, we want to go from A to B, and we're going to use the brand as the primary vehicle to get there, right? So that therefore is a brand strategy. To me, the brand is not the logo. It's the grand sum total of everything that you say, speak, create, do, think. It's all of it all together. That's the brand. That's your mark. Your unique essence as a creator. So, experience design. What is that? Well, in the design world, in the sort of branding, entrepreneurship, Silicon Valley startup world, especially in the apps, there's something called a user experience that is an art and discipline in and of itself. And it's basically the art of architecting, designing, crafting, and building how somebody interacts with your creation, right? In the case of an app, an app, even though it feels like this really smooth, seamless experience, there is an insane amount of thought that goes into every little gesture and movement and screen and option, right? They're not just chosen willy-nilly. There's a very, very clear and intelligent method to the madness. And so the same thing is true with, as an artist, we're not making apps, but we do create things and put it out into the world. And then those things touch people, they affect people. There's an experience that happens. And that's really, the magic, right? It's kind of like, if the tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to see it or hear it, like, did it really fall, right? Same thing's true with art. You can make the best art, but if nobody sees it, what's the point? So the seeing it part, the experience and the exchange between you, what you do, and your audience is all experience, and we can get very, very conscious and creative with how we craft those experiences, right? Whether if somebody lands in your website, what happens is experience. And if we understand that, we can craft websites that can ultimately make certain experiences happen, right? Or to help facilitate certain experiences. And that becomes, to me, just a huge part of the art itself. So it's like the art is the art, but then also like how the art touches the world and is interacted with is just as much as the art itself, in my opinion. So there's a book called The Experience Economy. And this book absolutely freaking blew my mind. I don't even, it was written like, I think in the 90s or something. It's pretty like old for what it is, but the ideas are just, I feel like they're now more relevant than ever. So the idea is that we are transitioning into a new economy that we don't even really understand yet, right? And just they've sort of tracked the development of the industrial world, so to speak, of our sort of modern business world that we live in. And, interestingly enough, it's not that old. Like what I want to say, just a couple hundred years ago, there were no jobs, right? There was no one had jobs because there was, it wasn't even a thing. Like it just, this is all very, very new. And so we're sort of in the midst of this kind of constant transformation that's been taking place over hundreds of years to decades, but now things are just changing so rapidly. So what these guys did is they figured out that perceived value sort of like shifts over time into different areas of focus, so to speak. So this is a graph from the book that I recreated, and they call it the progression of economic value. So what this shows is how there's a sort of hierarchy of value when it comes to things that we can create and sell. So on the bottom left here is commodities. Now, what we're seeing is that to the left side of the graph, the pricing is what's called market pricing, which is like low pricing. And think about coffee, corn, wheat. It's like market price. It's just whatever the market will pay, basically. There's no distinguishing factor between the commodities, really. It's just like cheapest rice is sold the most, right? Undifferentiated versus differentiated, right? That positioning. So it's like commodities are like not purple cow. They're just like every other commodity, right? They're undifferentiated, and they're also irrelevant to the needs of your audience, right? So the higher up we go, more relevancy. The higher up we go, more differentiation. And then to the right, we're getting more premium, which is to say that the perceived value of what it is goes up. So we start at the bottom with commodities. What's a commodity? Rice, flour, corn. There's sort of like these raw ingredients that have a market pricing that fluctuates and changes, just like gas or oil. These things just kind of every day it's a different price. Next up was goods. So that's one step up the ladder, because what we can do is we can take commodities and we can create goods with them, right? We can create things. We can take like cotton, for instance, and then we can like create fabric, or we could create a t-shirt or clothing, right? It's a good. So it's, I don't know what I would do with just cotton, but a t-shirt is really useful, right? But a t-shirt by itself, even though it's useful, it's more relevant. It's a little more expensive than the cotton, and it's a little more differentiated because it has a unique design. It's still just kind of like, it's still just stuff, right? Which is nice. But so if we go up another level, we have services, which is like having somebody custom make you a t-shirt, right? So again, the price goes up. It's more relevant because now it's a custom thing designed just for the person, or maybe, so anyways, as we go up here, services are getting more differentiated. It's more, it's more unique, more custom. This is a lot of times where people stop. Like for me, even personally, my main work has been in this middle point, doing client projects, taking on design work, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm beginning more now to do more, to translate that to experience and transformation. The music side of myself, creating retreats, creating dance events, these sort of things have always been here. But that's always kind of been like a side hobby of mine. And so now I'm kind of at this point of integration of pulling all these aspects of myself to create experiences and transformations. So if we go up to experiences, something interesting happens. No longer is what we're selling tangible, right? It's not about the t-shirt. The t-shirt becomes a souvenir for something else, right? And then the experience itself becomes the new valuable thing. Right now, you guys showed up for the experience, right? Hopefully, some of you will have some sort of transformation, whether through this one webinar or through the future workshops and webinars that we're going to be diving into. So again, experiences, we're getting more relevant, more differentiated, and more premium pricing. We're not all the way yet, but a key thing with this is that a successful experience is a memorable experience, right? That's it. Like, if you walk away from this and it's a memorable thing, and you're like, wow, that was really awesome, and like it sort of like keeps a lasting impression, mission accomplished, right? Now, transformations takes things up to the max, turns it up to 11. They're the most relevant to the needs of the audience, right? It's the most premium as far as the value of like what it's worth, right? Whether it's how much you're selling it for or what it's, worth in the minds and hearts of the people, even if you're giving it away for free. And then the positioning is totally differentiated. So what defines transformation is a permanent and lasting change. If it's not permanent and lasting, then it basically just falls back to experience. It's just a memorable experience, right? But if it's a lasting transformation, like you become a different you because of it, that's qualifies as transformation. And the way that we do that, the way that we facilitate transformation is through a series of experiences. You can't just have one, you can, I don't want to limit it, but generally speaking, transformation happens when there's like a rhythm of experiences all working towards that transformation. That's why at our Audio Alchemy retreat, it's not just a one-day retreat, right? We actually made it 12 days because we realized that's how long it really takes for us all as a group and as individuals to sink really deeper into ourselves, into the group. And that's where the transformation can really happen. So I absolutely love this graph, and it always reminds me to stay focused on creating experiences, creating transformations. And that's why experience design is a core aspect to the Brand Alchemy system, because we want to learn how to make better experiences so that we can ultimately change ourselves and our people. Yeah? Sound good? So when it comes to experiences, think about a movie, right? All experiences ultimately need a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? Experiences are really stories that we're letting people live out. So if we want to learn about story and myth, there's really no better place to turn than Joseph Campbell. He wrote this. Actually, no, he didn't write this. It's not a book. This is actually a documentary series that you can watch online for free. That's all about how mythology has basically shaped our humanity over time, and our humanity and mythology are sort of inextricably linked, so to speak. So Joseph Campbell created a framework called the hero's journey. And what his theory is that this is basically the master pattern, the master story for all stories. He argued that there's no story that this isn't applicable to, that this is basically the story arc. And so if we look at like some of the most popular stories, like Star Wars, for example, is perfect, is a great example. We've got Luke Skywalker here, and he has a call to adventure because basically his family dies. His family gets killed, and like they come and burn his little farm down or house down, and then there's a supernatural aid. He meets the Jedi, the Threshold Guardians, and they basically, invite him on the journey. This is Neo, right? It follows the White Rabbit, and then he meets Morpheus, and then this is the red pill, blue pill moment right here, right? Then after the red pill, blue pill moment, he eats the pill, he goes through the mirror thing, and then he wakes up in another world. Boom. And he can't go back, right? He's in it. There's no going back. So now he goes through this process, and he experiences all these challenges and temptations, right, in this new world that he has no freaking clue as to, like, he's way out of his depth, right? But he makes it. Because he's got these sort of magical helpers that, are always there at the right moment. And he goes to the deepest point of this whole process and has revelation, right? Realizes he's the one. Neo realizes he's the one. Luke Skywalker realizes like his dad's is Darth Vader, right? Revelation, revelation means to reveal. Same thing with Apocalypse is literally just an unveiling. So this is a death and rebirth point. Luke Skywalker, who he was, that little boy, died right there, and now he comes out a man, right? Same thing with Neo. This is like the point where he like develops the like infinite powers, and like kind of transcends the whole thing, so to speak. And then the transformation happens. Atonement is this at-one-ment, sort of this integration process. And then he goes back from the unknown into the known and crosses that threshold again and returns to his previous state, or not his previous state, but his previous reality, but as a new being. And then therefore that hit, the gift of the goddess is his new being, or this main character's being. So this is really a story of transformation, right? It's like we leave home, all this stuff happens, and then we go back home and we're an entirely new person, and we, have an unquestionable effect. We basically change the world that we go back to because we ourselves are changed. So this process can be utilized in so many ways. It's like we can use our art as a way to take people on this journey in simple ways, and this is the journey, right? The cave you fear to see, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. The big question is whether you're going to be able to say a hearty yes to your adventure. I say yes. I hope you guys say yes too. So what moves people, right? What would make somebody want to go on this crazy, wild, scary, dangerous adventure, right? Well, one of the biggest things that moves people, one of the biggest things that moves me is dance, music. You don't even need music to dance. It's just dance. And dance, again, here we were talking about how the human mind doesn't run on logic. What is logical about dance? Yeah, this is something that's just so deeply human. So what is dancing? It's, in the context of music, it's putting something out, a frequency, a resonance, a rhythm, and having people move to that rhythm in sync, in unison. As an artist, that's what I want. I want to put my art out, to put my creations out in the world, and to have people in unison enjoying that art. You know what I mean? And grooving to it. If it's a music, it's more obvious because you can see people bobbing up and down. But I feel like it's the same thing. A good piece of poetry is music. A good book is music. A good website is music. It has that sort of, something happens when the melody and the rhythm and the harmony are there, and it's kind of impossible to define what exactly music is, but we know it when we feel it. So what else moves people? Emotion, right? This is why emojis are so freaking popular, because it's a language of emotion. You can even like you can tell stories, like people have done novel summaries using emojis, like Moby Dick and stuff like that. It's really, really clever. Again, this whole thing about emotion. The human mind does not run on logic any more than a horse runs on petrol. That's why our beliefs trump facts. It doesn't matter what the facts are, right? Our beliefs, our worldview is our reality. So trying to change somebody's mind about something they believe in is a fool's errand, in my opinion, because it's just, it's just not going to get through, and it doesn't really need to. I think that our irrationality is actually something to embrace and celebrate. And yeah. When you demand logic, you pay a hidden price. You destroy magic. I mean, wow. Well said, Rory Sutherland. So another really, really key aspect of creating powerful, resonant experiences, designing experiences, is honoring the sense of us, right? It's a cultural thing. And the more of a sense of us we can create, the better. It's, again, we all run on the sort of the human mantra is people like us do things like this. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter the logic behind it. All that matters is that you do it, right? We monkey see, monkey do. Like what is it? This little necktie. It's like, what's the point? I think it's ridiculous and silly, but like these guys don't, and it doesn't matter if it is ridiculous and silly. Our customs are totally arbitrary. But these guys are part of something, and they're proud to be part of that something. And so, as artists, I think that what we want is to create this sort of sense of togetherness and to feel like you're part of something through the, around within the context of what you're creating. So in this context, I want us to all be together and on the same page about the fact that we're taking our artistry to the next level and getting smart with our businesses, and ultimately creating really sustainable and rewarding lifestyle for ourselves, doing what we love doing, which is what this is about. Ikigai. So ikigai is a Japanese word that basically translates to a reason for being. It's like purpose, your ultimate purpose in life. And the ikigai is across where 4 attributes kind of overlap. It's what you love, which is basically, your art, right? What you're good at. Again, your art, what you love and what you're good at, your passion, your art. What the world needs and what you can be paid for. So I find a lot of times that that's where we can run into trouble, is that we have what we're good at and what we love, like if you're good at making music and you love making music and you're making music, like it's great, right? But if there's not if what you're doing doesn't have a need, which is to say it's not, in demand or desirable, in the culture for whatever reason, and you can't figure out, how to get paid for it, then it's not going to be full ikigai. There's going to be something missing, right? If you have any one of these missing, you're going to feel like something's missing. And that's how I've been always. It's like half of my reality has been, what I love and what I'm good at. And the other half is what the world needs and what can I be paid for, right? It's like, for me, music is like what I love and what I'm good at. And then like web design and branding is what the world needs and what I can be paid for. And now I'm putting it all together. Ikigai. So I'm here to find my ikigai. I believe I've actually found it. Now I'm just actually putting my money where my mouth is and showing up and making it happen. If you do what you love, or if you do what you ikigai, you're never going to work a day in your life. True story. Okay. So another thing about creating and designing experiences, the musicians here are going to, really understand and resonate with this. It is a musical thing, an experience is music. Music is experience, beginning, middle, and an end. When you put on a piece of music, it's an experience. It changes the mood in the room. It changes your train of thought. It's you know, the best music takes you on a trip, even if for 5 minutes, right? So anything that we create as artists, as creators, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, like, it needs to feel like music, which is to say it needs to not be noisy, right? Which is, and you know, this gets to like, you know, one thing I notice is like artists in particular tend to make beautiful, brilliant art, but then, you know, you go to their website and it's like amateur hour, right? And it just doesn't like match. It's like the presentation and the actual thing itself are not like on the same level of quality. And so that's what I really want to help you guys do, is to ensure that it is at, you know, we're elevating everything that we do, and every way that we put it into the world, it's all elevating together. And it's all musical, even if we're not creating music. And every line of copy, so just back up, copy means basically storytelling or writing. You know, copywriting is just writing for marketing or branding purposes. I'll just call it storytelling. So in every line of copy we write, we're either serving the customer's story or serving the audience's story, or descending into confusion. We're either making music or making noise. Make music. That's what we're here to do. Okay. Transformation. This is the third key aspect of Brand Alchemy. What is transformation? So, I mean, in its most basic sense, transformation is the changing of something from one state to another, right? Which is great. You know, a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. But there's something that I want to point out here, is that there's a sort of upwards movement, in the sense that it's not just a transformation in the sense that it's going from one thing to another thing. It's more transforming in the sense that it's blossoming into a new thing. It's unfolding, it's refining, it's perfecting. It's not just, you know, becoming something else. There's a sort of upward spiral, evolutionary becomingness about it. Lead into gold, right? It's not just one metal into another metal. It's a low metal into a high metal, right? A base metal into a noble metal, right? Which is to say, the transformation not of Andy into George, but the transformation of Andy into higher Andy, right? That's what we're talking about here when it comes to transformation. So we're helping our audience transform from lead into gold, which is to say, to transform from their lower self to their higher self. And that's what the alchemists were all about. That's what alchemy was all about. You know, on the surface, we're told, oh, it was about changing. These guys are trying to change lead into gold, and they just like wanted money, and it was like some weird hocus pocus nonsense that like obviously has no validity or, you know, basis in reality. But if you actually go back and look, you discover that actually these guys were like insanely intelligent. They invented chemistry. Alchemy was the precursor to chemistry. No alchemy, no chemistry. And what they were actually interested in is, see, this was just a metaphor, right? Their whole system was just basically a language of symbol and allegory. And they use these symbols and allegory to obscure their work, to avoid church persecution, among many other things. And also because the knowledge that they held was very, very powerful, and some of these deeper truths of reality are sort of embedded into all of this work that I'm doing. But something that I want to point out here is that at the basis of their work was this idea of they weren't trying to change lead into gold. What they were trying to do, they were using that as an analogy to talk about the transformation of the lower human state to the higher human state, the sort of like beast man to the god man, right? And their whole art was basically about figuring out how they could actually create that cultural transformation to take place. They were essentially trying to create their own utopian reality, and they got pretty dang close to being successful. If you look up John Dee, if you look up the Terence McKenna, the Alchemical Dream, it's free on YouTube. It's a brilliant little documentary that actually tells you the whole tale, and the alchemical renaissance. So the whole Renaissance, right? The art's explosion that happened, the whole Renaissance was seeped in occultism and alchemy and these esoteric things. And that was really the heartbeat of the whole thing. It was, these things, alchemy, it was basically just normal back then. So again, it's a process of distillation, of refinement. This is essentially how essential oils are made. It's distilled, and then the distillate is the refined essence, or they call it the soul or sulfur of the plant. So at the core of alchemy, and the core of really transformation, and the core of occultism, which is basically just hidden knowledge that's been hidden over, throughout the ages for one reason or another. It's ultimately comes down to perspective and perception, right? It all comes down to perception. How we perceive ourselves in the world is how the world is, not because it is that way necessarily, but because we're perceiving it that way. And that's why two people can see one thing in two entirely different ways. But what alchemy is about is really about transcending the whole thing entirely. Instead of seeing two faces, the goal is to create a sort of global perspective shift to where we're able to focus and see that it isn't just two faces, but there's a vase in between as well. So again, perspective is everything. So there's a really interesting story I heard. There's an ad agency back in the 60s or something. And there was an intern that was kind of getting tested by one of the higher ups to see if he was ready to get a full position, I believe is how the story went. And so he pulled out 2 quarters and presented it to the kid and was like, "Hey, sell me one of these quarters." So the kid got really, he got smart for a second, and he goes, "Okay." And he said, "Well, this quarter is just a quarter, but this quarter was, was dipped in Marilyn Monroe's handbag." And he was like, "This quarter is $500 or something, whatever the arbitrary amount was." The idea being that what does it actually mean? I mean, can we agree that a quarter that was owned by Marilyn Monroe is definitely going to be worth more than a regular quarter? It might not be $500, but it could, $10 maybe, or $100 or something maybe. What's the difference? It's just, the difference is a story. It's just perception, right? It's an illusion. It's not actually different, right? In the same way that these 2 quarters, 2 of anything, the illusion of there being 2 things is actually an illusion. Engineers, medical people, scientific people have an obsession with solving the problems of reality, when actually, once you reach a basic level of wealth in society, most problems are actually problems of perception. It's true. This is kind of a sign of the times right now. This is a grim reality that we're all faced with. And this is that, this is the lead. This is the base. I mean, look at it. It even looks the same. It's black and dirty. This is what's happening. And it's due to what I believe to be a fundamental perspective or perception that has sort of been really anchored and grounded in the status quo. And that perception is that it's basically profit at any expense, at any and all costs. In boardrooms across America, it's up and to the left or up and to the right. That's it. That's the whole MO. What's our mission? Up and to the right. And this is what happens when we put profit over people. It's not that making money is a bad thing. It's just that when we value making money over the human experience, then we run into problems. And this is just the issue. And so it's not, money is not going to solve the problem. It's not about a new politician coming in and having shuffling funds around. That's not doing anything, right? The only thing that's going to fix this is a fundamental shift on a deep, deep, deep level. Because it's, the shift that we need to have happen is really an identity shift in a big way. It's what's going to allow us to allow people to see through the veil and to see reality for what it is, and to actually see this amazing, paradise that we live in, that we're, as a species, just pissing all over. Because alchemists, this is actually alchemical art from I want to say the 15th or 16th century. And, they were optimists. They saw that by having, a critical mass of a shift in perspective, a shift in spirit, so to speak, that anything's possible. And I believe that to be such. At the end of the day, it really comes down to this. And this is what I believe to be the reason that the profit is being put over people, is that we basically have come to believe that that matter is a sort of emanation or a product, consciousness is a product of matter, right? That's been the underlying belief, right? Is that all there is just this stuff, and consciousness somehow is like a sort of magic little thing that happens that we don't understand, but that like ultimately matter doesn't have an existence on its, consciousness doesn't have an existence on its own, only matter does. And that that sort of thinking ultimately is divisive, and it's separatist, and it, if everything's separate and nothing's connected, then yeah, why does it matter? Sure, why don't we just create this? It doesn't matter, But there's been some really groundbreaking research in quantum physics, and quantum physics is essentially proving what the alchemists thought all along, right? Which is to say that consciousness precedes matter, right? Matter is birthed of consciousness, right? And what that means, in quantum physics, what they call it the field, that there's this infinite field through which everything sort of comes into existence, and that they even say that our reality is ultimately just an illusion or a sort of simulation of sorts, and that the only real reality is that field. And in the field, everything is one. Everything is the same thing. Everything is the same consciousness before it divided itself. So that, I believe, is the real fundamental shift that we're sort of faced up against as a species of, are we just physical beings having a physical experience and none of it matters? Or are we spiritual beings? Are we consciousness having an individual experience? And, what happens when we wake up to that fact, right? What happens if we can all collectively realize that we're actually all interconnected through the fabric of space, time, and consciousness itself? I mean, that's what I want. So the great change, where does it start? It starts with you, and it starts with me. So how do we do it, right? How do we actually put all this into practice and make brands and experiences and transformation for ourselves and our audience, so that we can ultimately make the world a better place? Because that's what it's all about for me. Okay, so that leads us to Brand Alchemy, right? What is Brand Alchemy? What is this system? Like, what is the method? So the thing that is at the core of Brand Alchemy is really, we want to create brands and experiences and offerings, products, websites, all these things that we need to create as artists, creators, business owners. We want to do it in a way that's deeply human, right? It's putting the people over the profit. We all need to eat. Yes, we all need to make money, but if we can value the human experience first and foremost, everything can get really awesome. There's a lot of, you think about all the annoying stuff, like think about like pop-ups, right? Think about just like the most annoying ads you've seen that are just, or like, you know what I mean? It's like, these things they're not meant to serve the human, they're meant to use the human, right? It's a machine that's just like trying to use a human to get its own end, right? But what we want to do is to create experiences and brands that sort of nourish the human aspect. And so I like to say it's like creating living, breathing brands, right? There's definitely an organic sort of quality to it, and naturalness to it, a realness to it. And what we're going to do is also a really key thing that we have to do is we need to develop our voice and personality. You know, at the core of a brand is a personality, and a distinct personality, distinct voice. And we also need a method to the madness. You know, this is we've all seen this. We all can relate to this, but it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, sometimes it does have to be that way, but as far as how we approach the business side of things and how we approach branding ourselves, it doesn't need to be like that. We can actually make it nice and clean and tidy. And that's exactly what I've done, is taken my entire process and made it nice and clean and tidy and practical. So there's basically four phases to Brand Alchemy. There's a lot of different aspects to the system, but just right now, all I really have time to do, and if I did any more, it would just fry your brains probably, would be to just go over the primary phases of the overarching Brand Alchemy process. We're going to get into all the details and little subsystems in future workshops. But anyways, the first phase is the seed. Second phase is the root. Third phase is the flower, and fourth phase is the fruit. Easy. So we're utilizing natural processes and rhythms as the basis of this. So we'll start with the seed. So this is where it all starts, and this corresponds to fire. It corresponds to intuition and what I call the archetypal world. In Kabbalah, it's the archetypal world is the it's the world. Basically, in Kabbalah, there's 4 worlds that sort of are. It's like a hierarchy, and they correspond with these 4 phases. And the top world, which is kind of closest to source, so to speak, is what they call the archetypal world, and that's where we have like just raw ideas. It's like the idea of sitting before there's even a chair, right? That's archetypal. So it's kind of like, what's our core essence, purpose, and function as an artist, as a brand? Before creating anything, we need to figure these things out, right? We want to get clear on our vision, where are we going? Like get crystal clear vision, and get clear on our mission. How are we getting there, right? That's like, law of attraction stuff is literally just have a vision, and then, have a clear vision and a clear mission, and put those two things together. Vision plus action equals results, right? It's not just sit and wait around for your vision to come true. You got to actually like go for it, and then the universe will meet you halfway. So vision, mission, and then archetype. We talked about archetypes a bit, so we're going to actually use the Brand Alchemy archetype system, which I'll show you in a second, to figure out what your archetype is. We're also going to figure out your brand essence, which is like coming up with words that describe the sort of the key essence of your brand. We're going to show you that as well. We also need to clarify our audience. Like, who are the people that we're creating stuff for? Who's going with us? Who are the people that we are guiding and leading through our art? And what's our priorities, right? This is similar to mission, but mission is kind of more of a general, like, what am I doing? I'm doing workshops and teaching. Priorities are like what specific things need to happen in what order to move things forward. So that's the seed, focusing on these things. And what that does is it provides us with basically the blueprint or the DNA of our unique brand, right? Within every seed is the DNA of the tree, and that's how the tiny seed grows into a mighty tree. So by tweaking the DNA, you can tweak the tree that has grown from the seed, right? So every seed that's created through this process creates a unique, brand as a result. So the 4 areas that compose the seed is vision, where are we going? Action, how do we get there? Essence, who am I? And audience, who am I going with? Who am I taking with me, right? Where am I going? How do I get there? Who am I? Who's going with me? Simple, right? So where those 4 things intersect, right, is where the magic happens. And if you don't have clarity on one of these things, your growth will be stunted. At least I've found it to be true for myself and my client projects. So again, vision, really, really important. Knowing where you want to go, knowing what you want is such a key thing. And, the definition of magic, spelled MAGICK, is one definition of it anyways, is basically using your intent, your vision, mixed with action, whatever the action might be. It might just be purely mental means, perhaps, but using vision plus action to create some sort of result, right? If you don't know what you want in life and where you're ultimately going through your art, then how are you going to get there? How are you going to know when you got there, right? How are you going to be able to even track your progress along the way? I find that for myself and for a lot of my clients, like, there just usually is no vision to begin with, or it's a very, very vague sort of unfocused platitude that doesn't actually have any compelling sort of juice to it. Because a good vision is something that, is going to inspire your audience. Your audience is going to say, yeah, I want to go there, right? It's like, where are we all going? Where are we all headed to? That's the vision. So I'm going to show you guys. So if we go back to, where did that go? Well, I showed you the archetypes diagram before, and that's the common archetypes diagram. What I noticed was that, well, first of all, Carl Jung, his whole archetype system and a lot of his psychological techniques are actually birthed from astrology. He actually took a real interest in astrology and then sort of tweaked his discoveries and sort of made it work within his psychology realm. So what I noticed was that those 12 archetypes that he created, that the common brand archetype systems are made out of, actually correspond beautifully to the zodiac, which is what these all kind of came from, right? Because Carl Jung came up with the idea of archetypes by looking and studying the zodiac. So basically what we've got here is basing the whole system on the zodiac, and then we've got these sub-archetypes on the outer edges. So this is just a really easy way to identify your unique sort of character, brand character, which it just provides a framework, a starting point, and it's effective because these archetypes are present in the consciousness, the sort of subconscious or unconscious of every human being, which is why they all work. I believe that whether you believe in astrology or not doesn't matter. These archetypes are definitely something that's worth looking into and interesting. Let's show you an example. So for instance, my brand is the Alchemist, right? So it's Scorpio, and there's all these different things about it that feed into it, like it's water, it's fixed, and it's ruled by Pluto and Mars. So I'm not going to get into what any of that means, but if you start to look into this stuff, it'll give you layers and layers of extra depth and meaning that can be channeled into your brand, right? There's nowhere, I could do a whole class just on this by itself, and I need to move on, even though I love nerding out on this. But one of the things we do in the seed process is we figure out which one of these you are, and usually we do a primary and a secondary. So the big client project I'm working on right now, their primary is the Sage, right? So Gemini, as the primary, and the secondary is the revolutionary, which is Aquarius. So they're the revolutionary sage. And it really, just that little piece mixed with all the attributes of the sage and the revolutionary really creates a system for meaning. And they say that the archetypal systems is basically brand archetypes are a system to manage meaning. So that's one aspect of essence. And then the other thing we do is this exercise where we figure out our brand attributes. So this is my personal brand attribute exercise that I did. And the way that we do this is basically set a timer for each column, and we'll start with about 3 minutes. I'll set a timer for 3 minutes, and then we'll just brainstorm and mash out as many words or phrases that come to mind to describe each of these columns. So first column is culture, right? So it's like, what's your culture as an artist? Like, what's the sort of quality of the people and the culture that you want to be creating? It doesn't need to necessarily be, it can be something you want that maybe isn't here quite yet. But anyways, make a list, and then we go back through and then we highlight our top 3 to 5, and then we go back through and highlight the number one thing that we resonate the most with. And so I went through the whole thing, and what I ended up with is my primary for culture is transformative. Secondary is definitely creator culture, right? Transformative creator culture, right? My audience is powerful creators, artists. My voice is soulful. These runner-ups, philosophical, deep, confident, thoughtful. Those all play into it as well. But like by just narrowing in and choosing one, it really helps simplify this whole process. Feeling. So how do I make other people feel when they have an interaction with me, whether it's to come to an event or whatever, right? So the feeling that and this was actually a surprise to me, because I would have thought it would have been inspired or empowered or something like that. But the group that was helping me do this, they helped me see that grounded was actually the one that I wanted. And I feel like it's true. It is actually what I want people to feel, grounded after an interaction with me. I want you to feel grounded after this experience, grounded that you're ready to take the next steps, that you have clarity. So impact. Number 1 was deeper creative growth. Second's ups, transformation, breakthrough, dream life, unlock potential. So then, so this is the tangible impact, right? It's like what do you, at the end of the day, like, what are you actually doing for people? Like, what does your art actually do, right? And for me, it's to help people have deeper creative growth. And then the X factor is like, what's your secret sauce? Like, what's something that you have that like can't be really easily copied? It's unique to you, right? Nobody else has it. For me, my biggest X factor was this idea of practical alchemy, of just taking my interest in alchemy and occultism and making it practical in a modern sense, just through how we, create our art. So all these together form the brand attributes, and then we can weave them all together like ad lib style to kind of get our first brand statement. And so the template kind of goes something like this. Andy Freeland creates experiences and workshops and retreats for powerful creators in a transformative environment, with a soulful voice, helping them feel grounded and deepen their creative growth. And then, my X factor, my secret sauce is practical alchemy, or I could say, utilizing practical alchemy. So you can see how it all starts to like splice together, and then we start to get some clarity. Mentalia says, I wonder if as a solopreneur, does the personal brand recommended to be close to the biz brand and the archetype? So what you're going to find, if it's a personal brand, right, or a solopreneur, like, you're going to be drawn to something that's close to what you are, And another interesting thing too is that, like, you just kind of, any of them could really work ultimately. But you just pick one that really works best. And then, it's also part of the process where we want to understand where our audience fits as well. Because sometimes there are conflicts between archetypes, just like in astrology, some signs supposedly don't really go well together, right? But again, I wouldn't really worry too much about that. The key thing is that you just have a clear and easy to understand persona, right? And this system helps do that. I also want to say too, we are going to do a Q&A at the end. So any questions that come in now, I'll just make a note and then we'll answer them at the end. So feel free to ask your questions in the chat and I'll get to them. So that's the essence. And the other thing that we want to do, right, is audience. We want to understand our audience. So I use this really simple framework that just helps us create really quickly an audience profile, right? Because we want to understand who these people are. We need to understand who they are. If we don't understand who they are, how are we supposed to serve them, right? Super simple. And know your audience is not and everyone and anyone who will listen, because everyone and anyone won't listen, right? So we need to get really clear and narrow down. So I actually created 4 or 5 personas for different sort of subgroups of my audience, but this is one of the main ones that I wanted to include. So this is Jennifer Hall, the transformational facilitator. This is not a real person. This is just a fictitious character to help me better understand who I'm talking to. So some of you that are here are this person, right? And this person is just kind of the poster child of that. So she's 35, she's married, she's a yogi and a dancer. She leads workshops and retreats. She's got 2 kids. She's an international speaker, a best-selling author, and a podcast creator. She's a go-getter, right? She makes shit happen. So her journey is that she studied yoga and philosophy. She ended up getting married and having kids. And, her real motivation is she's like all about freeing the people and like liberation, right? Which is totally in resonance with what I'm all about. Her primary sort of means of doing this is through dance, movement, music, and through her work as a speaker and a facilitator. So she probably has like some sort of dance modality or something she created, right? Or maybe she's an ecstatic dance facilitator or something. So she does global tours, right? She's busy. She's on the move. She's a hustler. And she also has a book that she wrote that's just really a really clear and simple truth is really the essence of her book. And she has a very transformative personality. So she's busy, she's got kids, what we want to do with the journey part is we want to kind of like understand where they're coming from and where they're going, right? So she's on fire, but she's burning the candle at both ends, right? So what does she need, right? She needs sustainability, both in terms of money and energy. She also needs a long-term plan, right? She's married, she's got kids, she's thinking long-term now. She has the ability to travel. She needs the ability to travel yet stay grounded. She needs health and wellness. She needs a strong support circle, a strong brand, and an operational partner to help kind of share some of the weight. How does she get it? So what we do is when we get down to what she needs and how she gets it, we just 1 for 1. What do we need for her to get sustainability, right? Well, one way that I can think of in the context of what I do and what I create is that she needs a clarified business vision. She needs to really know where she's going and why. And that's going to create sustainability for her. Long-term plan, right? She needs an operational roadmap. She needs to have her vision, and she needs to know how she's going to get there, right? And then the strong brand, how does she do that? Well, she does it through brand strategy, through an identity system, and brand materials. So you see, it's very, very simple, but now like I have a really solid grasp of this person. Okay. Building customer avatars like this it was always something I avoided, and it always kind of like eluded me. I think the creative motion of making up a fake person can be kind of interesting to overcome. But if you don't understand who your audience is and don't have profiles like this, it's just going to slow things down. So once we have all these things together, right? Our vision, our audience, our action, and our essence, we put all those things together, and what we do then is we plant our seed. And the way we plant our seed is to start taking those action steps. And what happens when we plant a seed and water it and grow it? It grows, right? It's not like we don't need to force it to grow. It just grows because it has the right situation, the right environment. And so that's what this system is meant to do, is to provide a clear and effective system to creating brands that don't require you to like push and force and do anything you don't feel good about doing, right? It's the natural unfolding that happens, right? So don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant. And hence we have the seed phase. So then once we have our seed and we have our strategy, we understand the why, the who, the what, the how, and the where and the when and all these things, and we have those basic sort of archetypal building blocks set in place, then we can begin to plant our root, right? Spread roots. So the root, what happens with the root? So the root is corresponds to water. It corresponds to feeling or emotion. And in the Kabbalistic four worlds, it's the creative world, right? So how do you look, feel, and sound? So in the Kabbalistic philosophy, if the seed, the archetypal world, so to speak, we'll just use the word world, is, the idea of sitting, then this is where we come up with the concept of a chair, okay? So in this case, what we're doing is we're taking this seed and then we're beginning to translate, okay, how does this strategy translate to identity, to aesthetic, to the message, what we say, right? Like, how does it start to take form, right? And so ultimately the sort of grand finale of this phase is when we have our identity system. And an identity system is basically the combination of your logo, your communication and messaging, the behavior, language, your mission, your vision, your culture, your design. It's all these things and how they work together to create a consistent and resonant brand, right? It's an emergent property. It's like the whole is far greater than the sum of the parts. So what does a brand identity look like? Well, here's an example of the one that I found the other day. That's just it's a good example because it's so simple. It's just using bold color and really simple designs, and just a really nice, clean aesthetic. So, there's their logo and their colors, and you see there's a consistency, there's a system and a method, right? They design, they set patterns that they want that all have a certain meaning, right? And then they can create things with these building blocks. So your identity system is sort of like a set of building blocks for how you brand and package your work, right? And when you have a strong brand identity system, you can create this kind of stuff super duper easy and fast, right? Like, these are all really simple designs, but they just are aesthetically pleasing because they're all part of a coherent, logical, and emotional system, right? So what identity system is we're not looking to necessarily design all this stuff in this phase, but we're looking to create the sort of rules and aesthetics and colors and all these pieces that go into it. And this is kind of at the end, when I do a client project, the end of this process or this phase is that they get a complete brand guide. It's like a manual that shows, like, here's how your logo works, and here's how your typography, and here's your messaging, and your key, your mission, and your vision, and your positioning, and your textures, and all these puzzle pieces and building blocks. So then whatever they create, whether it's a website or product packaging or anything, it's just all being sort of built off of this framework, right? So again, the end result of this this phase is that you have a complete identity system to work with, right? So the way that we get there is that we start with a stylescape. So these are a couple stylescapes that were created. This is for an architect brand. So these are 3 different stylescapes that were generated based on their strategy, essentially their brand strategy. And it's like a glorified mood board, right? They're made by just finding images online that inspire you that all fit within a theme, and you want the imagery to sort of reflect back to those brand attributes and these things that we were talking about in the seed, right? We're not just picking things willy-nilly, so to speak. Another example. And then here, I want to show you a case study of my current client project. So here was all the kind of key words from the brand attributes exercise. Excuse me. And out of that, I picked the top 3 and then gave a couple kind of secondary words to play with, just because it's too much to try to say all this in one thing, but they all have a sort of common theme, common thread. And I identified that innovative, impactful, and trusted were the top 3 things that needed to be really spoken. So then what I did is I quickly created 3 really rough concepts based on all these words. And for each one, I picked 3 words. So the foundation, this is a concept. I just quickly made a little color palette, found a few images and a couple like icons just to kind of say, yeah, we want like kind of square stuff. And we want the attributes to be innovative, impactful, and grounded. Then another one for the alliance. So I created three just really rough concepts. Okay. And then what I did is had my designer, Andy Buns, Pathway, he created 3 stylescapes. So then the client decided they liked number 1 the most, and that we had a few tweaks that we needed to make happen. And then this is the result, the winning stylescape. So now we're in the process of actually translating this into a complete identity system, like this, but totally custom designed. And again, these are just images that we found online, but we're just creating a consistent aesthetic. And then they say, yes, we like that, and it provides the basis, and then we just create we create all the pieces that we need to actually have a complete brand system based on this. So what you'll notice is there's this thing that we're doing where we're basically just taking words and turning it into worlds, right? From words into worlds. And that's the the role of this creative, going from the archetypal to the creative, starting to create concepts around these abstract ideas and words, right? I love this quote. The true alchemists do not change lead into gold. They change the world into words. William H. Gass. I love that. So that's the visual side, right? So that's the visual side, or at least one visual part. And then we need to go, we're going to be creating the full identity system of this. And then on the other side is the messaging, right? And the messaging is part of the identity system. So what's your story, right? What's the message? What is your message? If we're just turning the world into words, right? What's your story? So your story is, it's who you are, it's what you do, it's why you do it, how you do it, and who it's for. Whether you're an individual artist or entrepreneur, or you run a branded organization that's not you, that entity is an entity that has a story. So these all work together, again, just like the seed works. Our message is the sort of harmony between the who, the what, the why, and the how. This is, I love this quote. 10% of conflict is due to difference in opinion, and 90% is due to the wrong tone of voice. Arnold Bennett. Oh, that's brilliant. If any of you have been in a committed relationship, you know this is true. So tone of voice, again, is so important. How it's not necessarily what we say so much as how we say it. Although, don't get me wrong, what we say is important. But the branding side of things is looking at how we say things just as much as what we are actually saying. So the process of creating branded messaging is very much like this image, right? So the way I like to think about it is like the raw sort of message, the nuts and bolts of what you're trying to say is the white light coming through. And then your brand voice, your archetype or your brand voice is the prism that gives it color, right? And then out the other side, the white light turns into this colorful spectrum. So same thing's true with messaging, right? We have our core message, that what we're trying to say, and then we have our voice filter, and then we apply the voice filter to the message to get our branded message, and that's what creates consistency. So it allows us to say a wide variety of messages in a consistent and meaningful way. So I'm not going to get too deep into this. I just want to show you the first two levels of this hierarchy. This is a really, really like useful tool, especially for creating websites. So what we've got here is level 1 is taglines, headlines, subject lines, and big story, right? If we think about like a website, for instance, what you're going to notice first is the headlines, right? And these headlines are best to be engaging, human, emotional, and provocative. It's like, it's meant to grab our emotions and to interest us. It doesn't need to necessarily make sense. It just needs to be interesting. And then we use level 2, which is subheadings and preheadings, to be directional and informational. So it's like left brain, right brain, right? We need to speak to the right brain and the heart with the headlines. And then we use the text underneath the headline or before the headline to help orient the person on the other end as to like what we're talking about. So it gives us this method to the madness. And so in the messaging phase, what we'll do is we'll come up with a bunch of headlines and then a bunch of subheadlines to kind of give that balance, right? I want to show you an example. Apple's really good at this. So just as an example of really potent messaging. So Apple, let's just say like that they want their core message to be people that use our products are really smart and innovative, right? That's like, let's just say that's their core message. And then they want to say it in the Apple way. So what comes out of the core message when they say it in an Apple way? They say, our products are for smart and innovative people. The way they say that in a branded way, level 1, think different. It's not actually really saying anything. I mean, it's saying multiple things, actually. It's saying, it's telling you, it's giving you a directive to think outside the box, but it's also saying that our products are different. It's like saying like, think different, like, you know what I mean? It's really clever. But I just want to show you like level 1, all the headlines, they need to be irrational. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. So this is a really, really, really powerful and popular and successful ad campaign that Apple did. And this has absolutely zero to do with computers as far as I can tell. Yet at the same time, it has everything to do with computers. So here it is. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. While some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. again, what does that have to do with buying a new computer? Right? Well, if I resonate with this, if I resonate as what they're talking, they're targeting the revolutionaries, the creators, I can see archetypes all over this. And it's about empowering them. They're making their audience the star of the show. It's not about the computers. The computer is just a way to help the people actually do what they're here to do, right? It's an enabler for this mission to happen. And we can learn a lot by following their lead. We don't need to do business the way that they do it, as far as like some of the questionable business practices, but they sure know how to create resonance. Effective communication will always require some degree of irrationality in its creation, because if it's perfectly rational, it becomes like water, entirely lacking in flavor. And that is, it's not what we want as artists. We live in the flavor. That's what we do. We make flavor. So that's it for the root. Once we have our root done, we have our message down, we have our identity down, our aesthetic down. We have this framework for presenting our work so then once we have that, it's like we have our persona, the main character is established. Now we need to get on the stage, and that's where we flower. So the phase 3, the flower, it corresponds to air, intelligence, and the formative world, which is like back to our analogy about chairs. In the archetypal realm, in the seed, in the archetypal, we come up with the idea of sitting. That's what we want to do. That's what the strategy is about. The strategy is, let's have a seat, right? Let's sit down. Well, then we get to the creative phase, phase 2, the root, and we need to figure out the concept of a chair, right? So we come up with the chair idea. Then when we get to the formative world, we need to actually figure out how we're going to build this chair, right? And the question here is, what mediums do you use to exist, right? So this is where we actually create our art, right? This is where we create the things that people actually touch or see or look at or experience. This is our websites, our products, our content, our media, our platform. To me, they're all the art. It's not just the music. It's the platform that the music is put is just as much of the art as the music itself. And the sooner that we embrace that idea, the better. And the more effective and profound art we're going to be able to make, because it'll transcend what we previously thought of as art. So let's look at an example of I've just found this website earlier. I think it's really smart. And this is a perfect example of turning the website into an extension of the art itself, right? Rather than just being an afterthought, which it generally is for artists. So this is Chantel Martin. On the actual website, it's like moving, and there's like these little eyes are moving around. It's super cool. And then you scroll down and you go down, down, down. And then it even like, who are you? You are you. Are you you? And it's just like really smart and simple and easy to understand, right? It's not overloading you with her story about, how she became an artist. That doesn't matter. She's focusing on the experience of you being on her website, and she wants to make it memorable, and she did. So again, here we take our identity and then we start applying it to product, to things, right? And because we have a strategy and because we have an identity, everything that we create is going to be consistent. I love this quote. A brand is a voice. A product is a souvenir. And I would even go so far as to take it one step further. And I like to say that a brand is an experience. A product is a souvenir. So in this phase, we're really designing the things that people are going to enjoy and interact with. And, most artists, as artists, and creators, we tend to just go straight to this phase. We just, we go straight to making the music because that's the core of it. We go straight to the website, the product, the content. And unfortunately, what that means is that we didn't take the time to develop our, strategy and our identity and aesthetic in a powerful and resonant way. So that's all we have time to get into with phase 3. Phase 4 is the fruit. So this is what it's all for, right? It doesn't end there. It's not just about creating art, creating more stuff, more music, more things, right? We don't need more things. But the fruit is that's the fruits of the labor is when it's enjoyed, it's eaten, it's tasted, right? So the phase 4 is fruit. This is the earth. This is the senses, and this is the material world. So we've gone from the idea of sitting to the concept of a chair to the blueprint of building a specific chair to now here's the chair in the real world being sat on. How do you engage with your audience? We do this through events, experiences, engagement, community, and transformation. So again, I find that artists tend to basically just exist in phase 3 and never go into these other phases. Well, I lied. If you're a musician, then, experience is a big, big, big part of it. But I think we can get far more intentional with how we actually craft these experiences. But yeah, it's that something happens, magic happens, when we have real experiences with other people. And, we might be there, we might show up for the person on the stage, but ultimately what happens in any really good experience, in my opinion, is we start to look around and see who's with us. And we realize that we're all, people like us doing things like this, in this case, being at a concert or something, right? And then as facilitators, as transformational facilitators, which is one of the key aspects of being a brand alchemist, is that we want to start connecting these dots, right? Connecting people, connecting ideas, connecting what we do with our people. It's all about connection. Beauty is connection. Collecting dots and connecting dots. And it's ultimately, at the end of the day, what all this is about, it's about bringing people together. And the music is it's just the soundtrack, right? What you're doing is just the substrate or the soundtrack or the reason that people, it's what gets people out the door. But it's not the ultimate thing. The ultimate thing is the other people, right? The sense of community of the, being people with other people, right? And dissolving our boundaries and ultimately turning, the lead of our base lower selves into the gold of our higher, more conscious selves, and, becoming the butterfly. I personally believe that as a species, a civilization, and as individuals, we are going through this process. We are literally transforming into something that we have no idea. We can't even comprehend it. But it's a totally natural process. And as brand alchemists, as artists, as creators, we're essentially paving the way, right? And the only way we can do that is by modeling it, by transforming ourselves, which is why, the work of the alchemist, first and foremost, is transformation of the self. And I love this. Everybody knows the analogy of the phoenix. This is a very alchemical symbol, and it represents, so down here we've got this dragon, and the dragon represents the sort of lower beast aspect of the human, right? And the phoenix represents the transcendence or the sort of submission of the animal nature to the higher spiritual nature. And so the phoenix rises, it basically is, it dies and is reborn through the fires of its transformation. And so it's an analogy for transformation. And that's what we're here to do. That's what Brand Alchemy is all about. Transformational brands and experiences. And helping, it's about helping our audience become their best selves. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. The big question is whether you're going to be able to say a hearty yes to your adventure. And it requires, stepping out of the norm and just discovering your unique path, your true path. And that's why I'm here, is to help you discover that and anchor that and develop and grow that so that you can better serve your people and make better art. So that's it. That is Brand Alchemy, 30,000 foot view. I know there's a lot that we covered there. So what did we learn? Well, we learned that in Brand Alchemy, there's 3 key areas that we need to focus: is brand strategy, experience design, and transformation. And as well, that in Brand Alchemy, it's essentially a 4-phase process. It's a cycle, and it goes around and around and around. Seed, root, flower, fruit. So that is all. Thank you guys for listening to that segment. So what's up next? I'm going to pop back over and we're going to have an interactive Q&A. If anybody has any questions, just please ask right now. Type it in the chat. I was going to have a way to pull people on screen, but I can't do it with the way I have this set up right now. So we'll have a Q&A and I'll answer any questions, and then we're going to have some music for a little bit till the top of the hour for about 30 minutes, and you guys are welcome to hang out and watch me play some DJ music. And then also on the left side, there's a sessions area. And if you click that, there's a little meet and greet session area where you can actually you can go in and you can hop on screen, and there can be up to 10 people on screen and unlimited amount of people watching, and you guys can meet each other and network and just say hello to your fellow creators. And then on the main stage, I'll be rolling with some music. Now, before we get to the Q&A, I just want to mention that the next sort of scheduled event that I've got is the Brand Alchemy workshop series. I'm doing like a 4-month, 4-part workshop series. We're going to dive really deep into each of the 4 phases, and each one is a full day. I'm thinking of keeping it a full day thing, just to because it's easier to commit to one day than to break it up into multiple days, but I'm totally open to hearing what would work best for you guys. So the first one is scheduled for Wednesday, January 8th. It's going to run from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to basically be just a full day version of what we're doing here, but also very interactive. And my friend and one of my partners, Andy Pathway, he is going to be the model, and we're going to actually develop his brand strategy in the workshop, and we're going to guide you guys to do it for yourselves as well. So at the end of the workshop, you guys are going to have a really simple strategy that you'll be able to actually then complete. So it's going to be $100. The workshops, I'm thinking just $100 each, and then I want to make it a total F yeah for you guys to join. So I'm decided to just make it $50 until Thursday, next Thursday. So it's like a week to get $50 together if you want to join us. And that cutoff will be 8 p.m. And if you want tickets, you can just go to bit.ly/Brand Alchemy Workshop. And I'll be posting about it and stuff. And if you have any questions about anything, now's the time. So yeah, I hope that you guys are able to make it. I'm really excited about the workshop series. So at the end of the 4-month series, essentially we're going to go through everything and create all the different little components of it. So it's going to be, starting off 2020 with a bang. So Q&A. Any questions? I'm going to look through the chat. I know there's like a 20 to 30 second delay on the stream, so any questions that come in, I won't see for a second. So I'll wait for a few questions to come in, answer any of the ones that were here before, and then if there are no further questions, we'll just get into some tunes. So Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for all the kind words. And I'm going to be like, over the coming weeks and months, I'm going to be producing a lot of free content, and I'm going to start doing just like impromptu live streams and stuff now that I have this whole system set up and I know that it's fun and enjoyable. I'm just going to start doing this more. Okay. So, all right, here's a question. Benjamin Langmead says, thanks, Andy. Main question. Are you definitely planning more Audio Alchemy workshops, and roughly when, even super wide timeframes? Yeah, so basically the first workshop is going to be on January 8th, and then we're going to be doing another workshop every month at the beginning of each month. So there'll be the next workshop will be the beginning of February, the next one will be the beginning of March, etc. And also I'm going to be doing a thing too. I'm going to set up like a community area where between the workshops, anybody that commits to the full series, ultimately, I want to have like in between work where we can actually be like staying in touch and helping each other like in the month between each workshop and like keep the momentum going. Tekla says, will you go into the astrology stuff in the workshops? Yes. So at this next workshop, basically the way I have it set up is that like I'm going to create a keynote for each of the different aspects of the seed. One of those aspects being the archetypes and astrology stuff. So that's going to be the first kind of deep dive where we'll spend like a full, 45 minutes or so just on that. Right. And so it's not going to be like a astrology masterclass, but you are going to learn just some real basic stuff that's going to help you within a branding context. So Virgil asked, how do you like Hopin? I love Hopin. I really love it because it's enabling me to create these sort of events that, I don't want to just do regular webinars. Like I want to create online digital experiences and events that allow me to do everything, combine all my arts and crafts and everything that I like into one thing. So I really love it so far. That's not to say it's been a cakewalk. It's definitely been a learning curve and there's been some glitches, but I've, was able to navigate, like last week I tried to do this and I lost my connection 30 minutes in and it was a failure. But I'm glad that I got to redo it because now I have, the music and all these parts. It's just so much better. So 4 parts. So Dion says 4 parts for total workshop community. What platform will you use for the community? So I'm going to probably build, it'll at least just be a Facebook group to start, but I'm going to be building a complete membership platform, like in a website for all of us. We'll probably use Facebook to start just to stay in touch. But anyways, my idea is like each workshop's $100, but the way I want it to kind of work is thinking like it's like $100 a month, and then you get the workshop and the actual like guidance in between and the community. And I even want to do like a weekly mastermind or something. And I'm considering just including it all with the price of the workshop. So all you need to know now is that the next workshop's, $100 or 50 till 12/19. It's January 8th. And if you sign up for that, then you're going to get that following month, included, whatever I end up creating as far as the group process. But I do want to make it a group process. Hopefully that answers your question. Benjamin means I meant the Audio Alchemy retreats. Are you doing more Audio Alchemy retreats? Yes, more Audio Alchemy retreats. We just don't have a date. We're focusing on the Audio Alchemy book right now, but there's definitely going to be more retreats. And I also look forward to doing Brand Alchemy retreats as well. So that's coming. Sharon, when you went over the seed section with all the graphic examples, that part, so the stylescapes and the aesthetic, that part of the brand seems overwhelming to me, but an important piece to really express the vibe of what you're offering. I'm not graphic savvy. I have ideas of aesthetics, that I like, but I don't know where to start to create a cohesive look. Okay, Sharon. So that's exactly what the stylescapes are going to help you do. And so the second workshop that we do in February is going to be focused on stylescapes, because there's no way we could design an identity system in a day. That's just impossible. But what we can do is create a stylescape, and that'll help. That's going to help narrow in that aesthetic. And we do that. If you can create a mood board or, you know, a collage, you can create a stylescape. And so that'll create that cohesive look. And then when you go to a designer or, you know, a friend that's a designer, you can say, hey, here's what I want. You know, here's what you need to base it on. It's just going to make you a better client. So I'm not teaching you guys how to use Photoshop. I'm not even going to do anything really in Photoshop at all. I'm going to show you how to be a better client and how to understand design and understand brand aesthetic and these things. So I hope that helps. Dion, 400 for 4-month mastermind with group training is awesome. You are absolutely correct. And I just want to I've been wanting to do this, and I just want to make it an absolute yes, so that we can have a solid group and have a lot of us all working together. And, you know, $100 a month just feels like such an obvious yes, and it's also not too much that it's going to alienate any of my friends, because, you know, a lot of us artists are struggling, right? So anyways, it's going to not be that low price forever. Definitely not, but it's that for now. That's what feels good to me. So let's do this. Q&A. All right, that's that. So it's 5:30. Wow, timing worked out really perfectly. So I'm going to play music for a half hour. You guys are welcome to stay and hang out and chat and ask me more questions. And I'm going to just be DJing some tunes and I'll keep my eye on the chat and interact with you guys. Again, feel free to go to the sessions area if you want to meet with anyone else that's here and just say hi and exchange info. Yeah, we can be here till 3, and then in a half hour, what's going to happen is the event will just end at the end. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you all at the workshop next month. Again, feel free to reach out to me at any point on my Facebook or my email or anything. I'll put my email in the chat here too, in case anybody wants to reach out or has questions. And all right, DJ time. So why don't we go to, I'm just gonna pick a song and we'll just take it from there. I don't even know what I'm gonna do. This is just some music that I've been listening to recently, some chill bass music. Enjoy. Thank you guys. I love you all. Thanks for taking the time. Thank you, Shade. I forgot to turn the tempo up. Hey Suzanne, thanks for stopping by. Thank you, Dion. All right, last song, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. Hope to see you at the next workshop in January. Thanks for coming out, everybody. Really appreciate it. Have a beautiful evening, beautiful day, beautiful life, and I'll see you next time.